but it is also Dr. Thomas Eppes' visit to the studio, as he does on the first Tuesday of each month here on the Morning Line. So welcome, Dr. Eppes.
It's always a joy to be here.
Speaking of dancing, I got to see you dancing some this
well,
weekend.
we had a
rug?
great time. Oh, yeah. It was a great event. And what a great reason to celebrate 5 years of this program being here. And then just getting to sit and talk to the two of you just is amazing.
James or Remedia, 5 years, and we were celebrating. So
Yeah, one of the highlights that we had, my wife had, was to meet the infamous Biscuit. That she said, I want to see what he looks like.
What did she think?
Did I live up to expectations?
Oh.
Well, I didn't ask her that.
846-8255.
So, Dr. Eppes, first things, we're going to get to some unusual therapies first, some things that have been tried over the years to heal what ails us. And we have, I think, several pages of those. But first, we want to get to the firing. Tell us who it was who was fired and why this is controversial.
Vinay Prasad is a physician and oncologist from, I think it's University of California, San Francisco. He is outspoken about how we do things without really vetting really well what the therapy is. And he was an outspoken critic of how the COVID vaccine was rolled out, and there were different ways that it could have done better. And he took a therapy for muscular dystrophy off the market totally, and the outcry was huge because clearly this therapy has worked with young people, but 3 people that had gotten the medicine died, and they were all older, and they were all older people with muscular dystrophy, not old, but that they were people that were already unable to walk. And so the rollback is to release the medicine back out for those people that it's benefited, and the people that were using it to continue to walk, because that's the ability with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. They lose the ability to use their lower limbs to get around. And that what happened over time is that because of his, I don't know if it was unilateral or whatever, but it was just a little bit of, let's get rid of this guy that does this type of thing. And so, you need in medicine people that question therapies. And so what I wanted today to do is to talk about questionable therapies that have evolved over the years. And you have to remember that for a long time, we had nothing to question any therapy of, and it was a lot of things seemed to be a good idea that just didn't quite work out. Of that, an example was during the Civil War, morphine was used as a pain reliever, where they thought, oh, what a great thing, let's find something better. Well, the chemists got together and put together a cousin of morphine because it was heroic. It was called heroin. And you could buy heroin over the counter. It was used to sedate coughs. And that it really became popular because there was a TB epidemic going around at the time. And TB is notorious for a severe cough and one of the ways it spread. And so, you were sitting there going, wow, this is a great new medicine. Well, it took them only 10 years to figure out that this medicine was clearly addictive, not a great medicine to have over the counter, meaning you could go into your pharmacist and ask for some heroin and they would give it to you. And for a long time, we could get over-the-counter narcotics. There was a medicine that when I was a resident and working at then Lynchburg College, of a medicine that we use for coughs called terpene hydrate and codeine. And you could get that without a prescription. That I love to use it because it tastes so bad that nobody would ever abuse it. I mean, it was not something you would boil down. But, that eventually just got taken off the market.
Biscuit, you were nodding wisely over there. Like first of all, I had no idea that that's the name of heroin was because it was heroic, from heroism. So, but you're familiar with heroin?
Yeah, I mean, it came from the Civil War. That's probably one of my favorite places in history, and so that's just something that, yeah.
And when did we realize that this?
It was banned in about 1924. It became illegal. It became a class 1 narcotic, meaning that there is no medical reason at all ever to use this.
I think I do now think of books where it mentions, the ladies of the house would have their they would be taking heroin, and it was thought to be good for you.
Right. Well,
Right?
there are a lot of things that were thought to be good for you. In the late 1800s, electricity was thought to be a potential cure-all for everything, and that it would power the body, and that for men that were weak, they had an electric belt that they would put around the waist with an attachment to power them up, so to speak. You could order it in a catalog. It was gone in about 20 years because people were getting acid burns from the electric things that they had. It was like having a battery that was exposed to your skin. So these guys were not only less powered, they were also permanently damaged.
Is this why the life expectancy rate was so low back then?
Well, we can get to that eventually, but you have to remember there were a lot of things that people tried just because there are things that go on as we get older that people will grasp with anything. And, that still happens today. There are a lot of things out there that people will advertise that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but has no proof that it is. It's hard to get a placebo-controlled, double-blinded study to show these things.
So the electric belt. But is there any use for that, like a kind of electric stimulation? Because I seem to recall
and
having
muscles.
therapy.
The last time, I
yeah.
don't think the muscle has what to do for. And another thing for impotent men, they thought, well, if you put a sperm-producing organ into the man's organ, so you were having of goat testicles implanted into men and goat ovaries implanted into women.
No
way. It was advertised. It was a total sham, but people did this stuff, and it was grasping for some amazing cure. They have.
And you have people in really desperate situations.
Right.
And they'll try
grasp at
anything.
anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, one that we still have to do. I was hoping
Biscuit
Brian would be here
Biscuit
today
can't look
because,
us in the eye.
Biscuit is just rocking back, just laughing
Remember
back
the
in
life
here.
expectancy comment that I made?
Yeah.
Well, here's one.
I still think we're on track.
And so here's another one. Asthma was supposed to be cured by cigarettes. And they even had a cigarette brand called Craven that was advertised to be used for cigarettes. And that in the 1930s, 40s, they marketed this to physicians by sending them packs of cartons of cigarettes to use. In fact, that was a very common thing that drug companies did back then, is that to get you to use the product, it wasn't a few samples. They would bring in a case of stuff for you to use and that type of thing. And so that by the early 1950s, there were advertisements. 50% of physicians love Lucky Strikes because it will cure you for whatever.
And they look really cool doing it.
Oh, that's right. And it was actually marketed to women that were pregnant to help calm their nerves. What a mistake that was. Of course, it took 1964 for the Surgeon General's report to come out and says, hey, this stuff is associated with lung cancer. but it took forever to be able to get warnings on the cigarettes and to have us falling for what we got from the standpoint.
Wow.
So here's another one.
Cure asthma.
And in the 1920s, the sewer of the body was considered the colon. So to get rid of things, you were supposed to purge on a regular basis. And I remember my mother every spring giving me a dose of castor oil to, get all the bad humors out, from the winter. But the other thing that happened at that time is that the coffee enemas is what they used. And so you'd get your Morning Joe up the backside. And it was supposed to cure migraines, cancer, and all this type of stuff. I'm giving y'all a headache just even mentioning this stuff, that people actually did this stuff. And there were some very prominent people in New York that people would line up to have their coffee purging on a regular basis.
What are you here for, Todd? Well,
to be flushed.
Here for the flush, Gene.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
we're talking about unusual therapies with Dr. Thomas Eppes.
That's right.
Okay.
Unusual
Yes.
therapies that were eventually proved not to work.
Right.
And so in the 1870s, cholera was a big problem that they had. I mean, it's a unbelievably severe diarrhea. Probably and people dehydrate. It kills quickly, and that and as science was coming in, they felt like, oh, well, white cells that fight off infection is white. So if we give people a transfusion of milk,
oh my God,
that you would fight off the cholera. And the first couple of patients actually seemed to get better. But actually, after a while, it was proven that doesn't work. And transfusions, which people understood the idea about giving blood, it took until the 1930s before we got blood types so that you could actually give safe transfusions.
They were just actually putting milk into people's bodies.
That's right.
But not a milk enema, right?
Not a milk enema. No, in the vein. They would run,
I guess that's what medicine is, right? It's trial and error. It's experiment. It's figuring things out.
It's observation
right?
about white cells.
Right.
White milk is just got to be loaded with something that's good. So
I hate that I want to go back and ask a question about this, but I'm going to go back to the coffee enema. They didn't still get the caffeine that way, did they?
I have no idea.
All right. Well, that's a Google search I'll have to make.
That's right.
Offsite.
Well, I mean, I didn't know whether they had caffeinated or decaf.
And maybe the different ones did different things.
That's right. You got it. So the final one that I just, weight loss has always been something that people wanted, and they wanted, something that was going to be able to get their weight down.
All right. I tell you what.
Okay.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
Okay.
You need a break after this.
Right. But I feel like we're going to leave the audience kind of hanging like, what is it? What is the unusual therapy that was recommended for weight loss? How long ago would this have been? Don't give it away yet, but it was
the 1940s.
The 1940s, so less than 100 years.
And it worked until the 1980s.
Okay, so we're going to hear what this unusual therapy was from Dr. Thomas Eppes with CVFP Medical Group when we come back. 7:55 on the Morning Line as we continue with Dr. Thomas Eppes. And no, this segment is not brought to you by Joe Beans.
Can I?
Some listeners have been suggesting it with all the talk about coffee, but the way we've been talking about it, no, it is not.
Chris says he wants to name the next Joe Beans coffee the enema with shot of castor oil. And by the way, I did Google my coffee enema question, and the answer is yes. You do technically still get the caffeine from the coffee enema, just not as much as if you actually just drank the cup of coffee.
We're talking about unusual therapies with Dr. Thomas Eppes, CVFP Medical Group, and we left you with the weight loss therapy that was from the 1940s to 1980s.
Right. Physicians, this has been something physicians have always talked about, and it always is diet and exercise, diet and exercise. But in 1941, there was a candy made that you would eat to curb your appetite, and it was caramel. The active ingredient was a medicine called benzocaine, and what that did is it numbed your mouth so that you didn't feel like that you were going to eat as much, and it was one of the top 10 selling candies products in the country. It just had a name that some of you out there may remember doing. I remember selling this stuff because it was called AIDS, AIDS. Well, in 1981, that there was this autoimmune illness that popped out, and it was named AIDS. And you can imagine the immediate crash in demand for this product that just tanked everything. They tried to change the name. They tried to change it to Diet AIDS and all kind of stuff. But nothing worked at all because it was tarred and feathered. Whether it really needed to be tarred and feathered is another story.
Because it might have been effective.
It was still effective, but but it was one of those things that's it. Never again.
Wrong name.
Wrong name, wrong time. And it was the right aid for a long time. However, it was the wrong aid when you had this immune deficiency popped out.
I thought you were going to say a tapeworm, because I remember reading advertisements about taking a pill that would cause a tapeworm to go in your stomach, and then that would, I guess the tapeworm would eat everything, so you'd lose weight. Is that a thing?
It would cause malabsorption and all kinds of things, and so this would be a cure that would only be something that would be in Africa, and that's because they get them naturally there, because they're in the ground. You can get them, and it's all kinds of crazy stuff that can happen to you when you get a parasite in there that drops things.
Oh, yeah, so we have Debbie said she tried AIDS in high school, didn't work. And then a listener wants to know fat from bacon to draw a splinter out. Does that work?
I've not used it. It would be an irritant and possibly could
try
do
it?
that.
Okay.
Yep. There are a lot of things, and I got a whole bunch more that we can talk about, in
next time.
the next time.
We look
and
forward
also
to it.
crazy things that put people in the ER.
Dr. Eppes, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again next month.